the unexpected invitation. Leo traced the rim of his cooling Americano, the murmur of the morning crowd a dull thrum against his anxiety. Amelia was at the espresso machine, her movements fluid and practiced as she frothed milk, the rich aroma of roasted beans filling the air. He'd rehearsed this moment a dozen times since the wedding invitation landed on his desk last week, the polite +1 clause staring back at him like an unspoken challenge. Each mental run-through ended with Amelia's polite but firm refusal, her logical reasons for declining a stranger's wedding already echoing in his imaginary ears. Another one, Leo? Her voice, warm and slightly husky, cut through his thoughts. She set a fresh cup down without needing to ask. He cleared his throat, the sound a little too loud even to his own ears. Thanks, Amelia. He pushed the wedding invitation, folded neatly, across the polished wood. Actually, I have a favor to ask. Her brow arched, a faint smile playing on her lips. A favor? From you, Maxwell? This is new. She leaned against the counter, arms crossed, her gaze sharp and attentive. My friend, Ben, he's getting married. Leo began, his voice a shade higher than he intended. It's in a few weeks, and I don't really have a +1. Most of my other friends are already paired up or out of town. He avoided her eyes, focusing instead on a stray coffee bean near his elbow. It's a bit of a long shot, I know, but I was wondering if you'd consider coming with me. He finally looked up, bracing for the inevitable. Amelia's smile broadened, a genuine, unforced crinkle at the corners of her eyes. She picked up the invitation, her fingers brushing the embossed script. You want me to be your date to a wedding for a friend I don't know? There was an undercurrent of amusement in her tone, not mockery, but genuine surprise. Just as a friend, Leo clarified quickly, his cheeks flushing. No pressure. You don't have to stay long. Just so I'm not the only one awkwardly alone at the singles table. She tapped the invitation against her chin, her gaze thoughtful. You know, Leo, she said, a mischievous glint in her eyes. I haven't been to a wedding in ages. It might be interesting. What's the date again? A dance of discovery. The clinking of silverware and murmur of polite chatter filled the opulent ballroom. Leo, adjusting his tie for the 5th time, felt a familiar wave of unease wash over him. He watched Amelia across the table, effortlessly engaged in conversation with the bridal party's aunt, her silver dress shimmering under the chandeliers. He'd barely managed a strained smile at a distant cousin before retreating into himself. Later, over lukewarm chicken, Amelia turned to him, a mischievous glint in her eyes. So, quiet Leo, what grand existential crises are we contemplating tonight? He chuckled, a genuine sound. Just the usual, the fleeting nature of joy, the cosmic insignificance of canapés. She laughed, a rich, melodic sound that drew a few glances. You're well versed in the philosophical implications of catering, I see. Ever dabble in vintage arcade games? His head snapped up. Are you serious? My apartment is practically a shrine to early 90s pixel art. Their conversation flowed, unburdened. They dissected the intricate lore of obscure sci-fi novels, debated the merits of abstract art, and discovered a mutual, inexplicable fondness for bad 80s pop. The awkward silence that had initially hung between them dissolved, replaced by a comfortable rhythm of shared interests and surprising insights. As the DJ finally cranked up a familiar beat, Amelia extended a hand. Come on, Pixel Prince. Let's see if your footwork matches your wit. He hesitated for a fraction of a second, then took her hand. On the dance floor, amidst the swirling lights and joyous crowd, Leo found himself laughing freely, spinning Amelia, who, despite her initial protests, moved with an uninhibited grace. Her eyes met his, bright with an energy that surprised him. It wasn't just a casual agreement anymore. It was a revelation, a joyful discovery unfolding under the disco ball. Beyond the wedding bells, Leo stared at his phone, the contact for Amelia Thorne a beacon in the digital expanse. 7 days. 7 days since the wedding, 7 days since he'd last seen her. 7 days he'd been dissecting every glance, every laugh, every shared silence. He mentally replayed her easy smile, the way her eyes crinkled when she was genuinely amused. A simple invitation was never supposed to change anything. Yet here he was, heart thumping like a trapped bird, debating the audacity of asking her for coffee. Just coffee, Leo. It's not a proposal. He exhaled, the sound a faint hiss in his quiet apartment, and tapped the call button before he could overthink it further. Amelia's voice, clear and unhurried, answered on the third ring. Leo, to what do I owe this surprise? Amelia, he began a little too quickly. I was wondering if you'd be free for coffee sometime this week? No pressure, just a chat. A beat of silence stretched, then a soft chuckle. Coffee sounds lovely, Leo. How about tomorrow, noon, at the Daily Grind? Relief washed over him, a warm tide. Perfect. See you then. The Daily Grind was bustling, but they found a quiet corner. The scent of roasted beans and warm pastries hung in the air. Amelia, in a tailored blazer and an air of effortless competence, listened with genuine interest as he recounted a particularly frustrating tech support call. He, in turn, found himself captivated by her insights into urban planning, a world so far removed from his own. There was an ease between them, a comfortable back and forth that surprised him. The initial hour melted into 2, then almost 3, until Amelia glanced at her watch with a regretful sigh. I should get back to the office. Right? Leo said, a pleasant warmth lingering. It was good. It was, she affirmed, a small, knowing smile playing on her lips. That coffee became the first in a series of casual encounters. Dinners at local bistros where they debated everything from politics to the best way to grow tomatoes. Evening walks through the botanical gardens, the twilight painting the blooms in muted hues. Their conversations softer, more personal. He discovered her love for obscure documentaries. She learned about his fascination with vintage synthesizers. They shared laughter over burnt toast and shared silences that felt more intimate than words. With each shared meal, each shared story, the protective layers Amelia wore seemed to soften, just perceptibly. And Leo, usually so reserved, found himself eagerly anticipating their next meeting. A subtle but insistent hum of anticipation, now a constant companion. Whispers and doubts. He's how much younger, Leah? Veronica's voice, usually a gentle murmur, now held an edge sharp enough to slice through the clinking cutlery of the busy brunch spot. Amelia's mimosa, usually a pleasant fizz, suddenly tasted flat. Beside Veronica, Sarah's eyes, usually warm, darted with a mixture of curiosity and thinly veiled judgment. Amelia set down her fork, the half-eaten smoked salmon frittata losing its appeal. 12 years. It's just a casual thing, honestly. No big deal. But even as she said it, a defensive heat rose in her cheeks. Casual? You're practically glowing, Sarah observed, a sly smile playing on her lips. Just be careful, honey. Younger men can be complicated. Different stages of life and all that. The conversation shifted, but Amelia felt a lingering unease. Their well-meaning concern felt more like an indictment, a subtle reminder that her choices were being scrutinized. She found herself mentally cataloging Leo's maturity, his quiet strength, as if preparing a defense. Across town, the air in the tech company's innovation lab hummed with forced camaraderie. Leo, nursing a lukewarm sparkling water, tried to blend into the periphery. He'd just finished explaining a complex data model to a new hire when he overheard it. Maxwell's looking a bit smug tonight. A senior developer, Mark, chuckled to a colleague, gesturing subtly in Leo's direction. Guess he finally bagged that older woman. Good for him, I suppose. Always knew he had a thing for cougars. The word, delivered with a dismissive sneer, hit Leo with unexpected force. His smile faltered. He'd always prided himself on his self-assurance, but the casual cruelty of the comment burrowed deep. Was that how others saw them? As a novelty? A transaction? Later, alone in her apartment, Amelia stared at her reflection. Had she been naive? Was she deluding herself about what this could be? The whispers of her friends, though unsaid, echoed loudly in her mind. Leo, walking home through the cool night air, replayed Mark's words. He felt a bitter taste in his mouth. He'd never considered their age difference a weakness, but now, a creeping doubt began to gnaw at his confidence. He found himself questioning not just Mark's opinion, but his own worthiness, truths and fears. The city lights shimmered through Amelia's living room window, casting long, dancing shadows across the plush rug. A half-empty bottle of Cabernet stood sentinel between them on the coffee table. The earlier, light-hearted banter had softened, replaced by a comfortable silence that Leo eventually broke. "You know, Amelia," he began, tracing the rim of his glass, "you're a really tough nut to crack sometimes." Amelia chuckled, a brittle sound. "Is that a complaint, Maxwell?" "Just an observation. Most people wear their hearts on their sleeves. You've got a fortress." Her gaze drifted to the cityscape. "Fortresses are built for a reason. I learned early on that vulnerability is just an invitation for someone to walk all over you. I've given pieces of myself away, only to watch them be discarded or, worse, weaponized." Her voice, usually so assured, held a faint tremor. "The last time, I thought it was different. He said he loved my drive, my independence, but then he resented every hour I spent building my business. Called me too much. I'm tired of being too much or not enough or too intense. It's easier to just not let anyone in." Leo nodded slowly. "I get that. In a different way, maybe. I'm always the young guy, you know? The one with the fresh perspective, but never the one with the real answers. People see my age, and they just see inexperience. It's frustrating, feeling like I have to constantly prove I'm more than just a number on a birth certificate, that I can actually contribute something meaningful." He looked at her, his eyes earnest. "I want to be respected, Amelia, not just tolerated." The air thickened with unspoken understandings. Amelia found herself looking at Leo not as the quiet IT specialist, but as a man bearing his own silent burdens. His honesty was disarming, chipping away at the carefully constructed walls around her heart. A necessary pause. The cafe felt heavier than usual, the clatter of ceramic on saucers sounding like distant thunder. Leo traced the rim of his untouched coffee cup, the heat a phantom warmth against his fingertips. "This us?" he began, the words catching in his throat. "It's moving fast, faster than I thought possible." He met Amelia's gaze across the small table. Her usual sharp composure was softened by a flicker of something he couldn't quite name, vulnerability, perhaps, or a shared exhaustion. "I know," she replied, her voice a low murmur. "It's a lot, isn't it? All of it. The feelings, the expectations." She paused, exhaling slowly. "Maybe we need a minute, a real minute, to sort through what this is, what it could be, without the pressure of the next meeting." Leo nodded, relief and a sharp pang of disappointment warring within him. "A pause," he clarified, the word feeling oddly clinical for something so deeply personal. "Not an end." Amelia's eyes held his. A necessary pause. The following days stretched, each hour amplifying the silence. Leo found himself staring at his phone, willing it to buzz with a message that wouldn't come. He walked through his apartment, noticing the faint scent of the tea Amelia had once brewed, a ghost of her presence. He spent hours coding, the logical precision a balm to his churning thoughts, but even the complex algorithms couldn't entirely distract him from the ache of her absence. He missed her directness, her wry humor, the way she made him feel seen. Amelia, too, felt the quiet acutely. Her usually bustling schedule offered little comfort. The hum of her city apartment, once a sanctuary, now echoed with unspoken questions. She caught herself reaching for her phone to text him about a particularly absurd client meeting, then pulled back, remembering their agreement. She craved his thoughtful observations, his quiet strength, the unexpected warmth he brought to her carefully constructed world. This pause, she realized, wasn't just about processing. It was about understanding just how deeply he had already embedded himself in her life. The separation, though self-imposed, felt like a constant reminder of what she stood to lose. The spark rekindled. The scent of freshly baked sourdough mingled with earthy petrichor as Leo navigated the crowded aisles of the farmer's market. It was Saturday, a ritual he'd clung to even after everything shifted, a small anchor in the weeks that had felt adrift. He was eyeing a display of heirloom tomatoes, their varied hues a vibrant splash against the rustic wooden crates, when a familiar laugh, rich and resonant, cut through the market's cheerful din. His breath hitched. Across a stall laden with artisanal cheeses, Amelia Thorne stood, her head tilted back in amusement, sunlight catching the silver threads in her dark hair. She was talking animatedly with a vendor, a canvas tote slung casually over her shoulder. For a moment, the world narrowed to just her. The easy confidence in her posture, the way her eyes crinkled when she smiled. A jolt, sharp and undeniable, went through him. He told himself he was fine, that the space had been necessary, but seeing her now, the carefully constructed walls around his heart crumbled. Amelia's gaze swept across the market, momentarily meeting his. Her smile faltered, replaced by a flicker of surprise, then something warmer, more complex. She excused herself from the vendor and, with an almost imperceptible nod, began to walk towards him. Leo felt his palms grow clammy. "Leo," she said, her voice a low murmur as she stopped a few feet away. "Fancy meeting you here." "Amelia," he managed, a foolish grin threatening to break through his composure. You look well." She laughed softly, a sound that resonated deep within him. "And you, still chasing the perfect tomato." Her eyes, those intelligent, knowing eyes, held his. The casual banter was a thin veil, barely concealing the undercurrent of unspoken emotion. "Something like that," he admitted, the air thick with unspoken words. I've thought about you." Her expression softened, a vulnerability he hadn't seen in weeks. "I've thought about you too, Leo. More than I expected." She took a small step closer, her scent something clean and subtly floral, enveloping him. This pause. It didn't make things clearer, did it? He shook his head, the truth spilling out. It just made them quieter, and I realized how much I missed the noise. He reached out, almost involuntarily, brushing a stray strand of hair from her cheek. Her skin felt warm beneath his fingertips. Her gaze, steady and unwavering, confirmed it. The spark hadn't died. It had merely been waiting for a breath of air. Public declaration. The invitation lay on Amelia's mahogany desk, a creamy rectangle of thick cardstock. A gala, a formal event for her foundation's benefactors. A social gauntlet she usually navigated with practiced ease. But this year, it felt different. Felt like a stage. Letting Leo into her life had been a series of small, almost imperceptible shifts, like tectonic plates grinding beneath the surface. Now it was time for an earthquake. She chewed on her lip, a rare display of uncertainty. She was Amelia Thorne, the woman who built an empire from an idea, not someone who dithered over a +1. Yet, asking him to step into her spotlight, felt like a declaration. A public acknowledgement of something she was still privately trying to define. It was a risk, a big, glittering public risk. She found him in the quiet hum of the server room, his brow furrowed in concentration as he traced a tangle of wires. "Maxwell," she began, her voice betraying none of the internal tremors. He straightened, a faint flush rising on his cheeks. "I'm attending the annual benefactors gala next month. My foundation is formal, black tie. I require an escort." She paused, letting the implication hang in the air, a silk thread waiting to be caught. "Would you consider joining me?" A flicker of surprise, then something akin to awe, crossed his face. "Me? To your gala?" "Yes, you," she confirmed, a ghost of a smile playing on her lips. "Unless you have a prior engagement involving, say, the dismantling of a supercomputer?" He laughed, a genuine, unburdened sound. No, no supercomputers. I'd be honored, Amelia. The weeks leading up to the event were a whirlwind. Amelia found herself consulting with her stylist not just for her own gown, but for Leo's tuxedo, a subtle, almost imperceptible shift in her routine that spoke volumes. Leo, for his part, seemed to oscillate between quiet excitement and a deer-in-headlights apprehension. She caught him practicing a hesitant waltz in an empty corridor one afternoon, a sight that simultaneously charmed and broke her composure. The night before, staring at her shimmering emerald gown, Amelia felt a knot of anticipation tighten in her stomach. It wasn't just about the optics. It was about the feeling, the thrill of stepping out hand in hand with the quiet IT specialist who had, against all odds, managed to dismantle her protective emotional barriers. Their own rhythm. The ballroom hummed with the murmur of 100 conversations, punctuated by the clinking of glasses. Amelia, resplendent in a sapphire gown, felt the subtle shift in the air as they entered, a collective assessment. Leo, beside her in a perfectly tailored charcoal suit, seemed oblivious, his hand resting lightly at the small of her back. She caught snippets. "Isn't that Thorne?" And with him, the whispered judgments, though muted, were clear. Amelia simply offered a tight, polite smile, her gaze sweeping over the crowd as if searching for someone specific, while in reality, she was simply acknowledging their presence without giving them power. Leo leaned in, his breath warm against her ear. Ready to face the gauntlet? A slow, genuine smile finally touched her lips. Always. Later, as the band struck up a slow, melodic tune, Leo extended his hand. Amelia took it, her fingers intertwining with his. On the dance floor, they moved with an easy synchronicity, a rhythm entirely their own. His gaze, usually so guarded, was open and warm, reflecting the soft light of the chandeliers. Amelia felt a familiar comfort settle over her, an inexplicable peace that quieted the usual clamor in her mind. He wasn't twirling her dramatically or attempting any flashy moves. They simply swayed, two people finding solace in each other's presence amidst the swirling crowd. The outside world, with its expectations and raised eyebrows, faded. There was only the gentle pressure of his hand, the subtle scent of his cologne, and the quiet assurance in his eyes. Months later, the gala was a distant, pleasant memory. Sundays were now marked by shared mugs of coffee and the rustle of newspaper pages. "Did you see this article on AI ethics?" Leo asked one morning, tapping a section. Amelia, curled on the sofa with her own tablet, responded, "I did. It raises some interesting points about responsibility." Their conversations flowed easily, ranging from complex work challenges to the mundane details of their week, each discussion deepening the foundations of trust they'd painstakingly built. There were no grand pronouncements, just a steady, quiet accumulation of shared moments, proving that sometimes the most profound connections bloomed in the most unexpected soil.